Welcome back to the Pomcast, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Mike Shog. He is absolutely somebody that you're going to want to learn from, and if you've been tuning into previous Pomcast episodes, then you know Mike is the CEO and founder of Premier Online Marketing. And today we're going to get into a topic that I think for multifamily marketers, you're going to have a lot of interest, property managers, developers, because we're going to talk about building SEO-friendly, high-performing websites for apartments. There's a lot that goes into this, the structure of your URLs, your naming conventions, your hierarchy relative to pages. There's just a lot of technical details, and sometimes you find people out there that can kind of demystify or make complex things a lot more digestible and understandable. And Mike's one of those guys, as you guys all know, if you've seen him before, that he does a great job with that. So welcome back to the Pomcast, Mike. How are you?
Good to be here.
Yes, it is. It's always good when you're here because you have as we were saying before we hit record, you do have a way of cutting through for people that doesn't just give them insights or like, I got smarter, but it's likable and it helps people establish trust because it doesn't feel like you're always just selling people stuff other than, education, which is you give out for free.
I appreciate that. This topic, kind of a last minute rotation in from what we were going to talk about today, because honestly, it just comes up all the time. We're always working with apartment and multifamily development companies in lease up efforts for brand new properties. And oftentimes we are not part of the conversation when the website vendor is selected. We're not part of the conversation when it comes to branding or market studies. And we kind of inherit a website that in some cases is great and in most cases is actually missing a lot of elements to be successful from both a paid media and SEO perspective. So the purpose of this call is to do just kind of a quick voiceover on like, what is the best case scenario for apartment websites? What are the elements that you absolutely have to have if you want to rank for the keywords you want to rank for? What are things that you should avoid? And the benefit for this is that, apartment websites are pretty small. The average apartment website has 5 to 7 pages. The average e-commerce or automotive or power sports websites have thousands of pages. So it's actually really easy to get this right. And there's just a number of things that I wanted to flag as we literally have a conversation on a monthly basis with someone that gave their property an obscure name that nobody correlates to being an apartment business or doesn't have the geo in it. So it makes things really difficult from an SEO standpoint. So basically, the way to listen to this call, it's like if you were getting kind of a wish list from your paid media company, from a paid media and SEO standpoint, what would be the things that would help marketers lease up the buildings faster? And what are the elements that you absolutely have to have right as early on as possible in your lease up to accelerate your traction on the SEO side and obviously give your paid search the best chance for success?
I love the way you frame that, Mike, because I don't think enough people, especially when they're making decisions regarding a website, what's going to go on the website, what needs to or what doesn't need to, they don't always take into consideration that their agency, people that they work with, like POM, like Premier Online Marketing, you have no active interest in that process of them making those decisions and what's being told to them and what questions they should be asking and basically just what homework they maybe need to do that would be essential for successful outcomes. There's just a lot that goes in before you go off and say, well, now let's figure out what would be a good marketing strategy for all this. So I love that way that's framed. I think it's important and it's a good way for people that are tuning into the episode to realize that that's what you're in for. Is we're going to walk through these things, talk through some stuff that you'll come away with almost like these notes will help you better prepare for success. So, well, let me start around the selection of URL, which you mentioned just a second ago. Then naming convention, you selecting, what URL is going to be best for your apartment. What are some of those do's and don'ts around, you naming your apartment property in the URL?
Absolutely. So again, there's that funny meme where it's like a picture of a restaurant or a laundry shop, and it's like laundry shop near me because they named their business in a way to game SEO, and it sometimes works. You don't have to go quite that crazy. You don't need to go with an apartment name or URL structure of apartments near me. But if you have a luxury apartment community in, say, Plano, Texas, you know, it would be helpful to have something related to apartments or residences in the URL. There are oftentimes a lot of apartment names that sound cool, but they don't mean anything. Windermere. I don't know why there's so many Windermeres in the country. Nobody knows what a Windermere is, but I think we have 3 clients right now named Windermere Preserves or Commons or whatever. But what's really important is if you are going to go with a name like Alexan or Windermere or something like Solaris or something like that, you want to make sure that it's Solaris Apartments, Plano, Texas, Solaris Apartments, Plano, Solaris, Plano, APTS, something that indicates in the URL, hey, this business name, which could be a beauty salon or a spa or a hedge fund company, is actually an apartment community. That signal to Google is super important, and it's super important to your customers as well. There are a lot of ways that people kind of get cute about this, like live at the Alexan or whatever, and that's fine too. But just so long as you're kind of giving Google the signal that you are an apartment community. So that's kind of the base level. But from an SEO perspective, it really makes sense that you would have apartments and the primary geo where your property is located in the URL. That is a nice to have. And the difference between a property that's, say, let's just call it, you know, Alexan Commons or, you know, Solaris Luxury Apartments Plano, the difference is going to be thousands of users over the very beginning of your lease up process. So naming is very important. It's an important signal for what your name is in Google My Business. So it's really important that your property is named something that help you understand where it's located and what it is. So that, you know, again, that's not an area where we typically come in, but we recently had a project in McKinney, actually. And it was kind of an interesting situation because this particular property name, which I will not say, had the exact same property name as 5 other apartment communities in the country and 2 other ones in Texas. And they had literally the exact same name. And Google just they wouldn't show up for their own branded name. So we made the recommendation that they make a URL change to include the words apartments and McKinney in it. And the property is ranking and doing way, way better. But yeah, it's sometimes things that come from the branding companies don't actually really make sense. So you just want to make sure that you are being very clear with Google and your users what the business is about. A lot of times people, even in the automotive side, they'll talk about their dealership as kind of like an experience or something like that. It's not. It's a car dealership. You just want to make sure that your naming convention is on the nose and that you're communicating with your users in a way that they expect. And you don't want to like try to surprise them or re-educate them on some other vernacular that maybe your branding agency came up with.
This is a really important insight, and I'm glad you're mentioning it because I don't think people realize how much marketing teams actually the kind of messes they make.
Yeah,
when they're trying to, especially for the people who are just brand. They're coming up with names and logos and all that. And what ends up happening is exactly what you're talking about. They think that something that kind of sounds like maybe some new SaaS that's out there in the tech market is like the cool name, which there is some logic behind investment companies around, well, what's the name of your company? And like cool, modern sounding names. But when you start doing this, to your point, in the multifamily industry, you literally are setting yourself up for far less than success. In fact, you may be setting yourself up for a problem that costs you even more in the long term to correct it before you start to see what you could have been getting in the very beginning if you did it right.
It's not always like it's detrimental. It's just going to take way longer during a time when you do not want that time to start. You want, as soon as you get the certificate of occupancy, and as soon as you can start bringing people in for either hard hat tours or whatever, you want to be visible online. And if you don't have any visibility organically, then that means that you're going to be paying for all of it. PPC is expensive. SEO is really important. It converts 3x better than PPC. So it's really important to kind of think about that specifically. But that's kind of all I had on the naming side.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I like that though. I think it's really important because I think a lot of people don't even they don't I don't think I know that a lot of people don't think about, well, why is that important? Because I really like this cool name. And again, you have these warring factions within all things sales, marketing, branding, advertising that have opinions on this, but what you're dropping is like this is just the factual side of what could happen. And I am glad you added for context that it's not detrimental, like, oh, you're not going to be successful at all. But it's almost like it gives you too much to be doing that you have to overcome.
exactly.
And when you didn't have to do that in the first place. Well, let's talk a little bit about, let's get into like some factors relative to performance,
Um,
speed,
yeah.
accessibility, like, that type
Yeah.
of stuff.
Obviously, I think the most important thing on the performance side is that you have a fast mobile ready experience. Usually, it doesn't matter what part of the country I'm in. If I look at Google Analytics and I look at the device that users are coming from, it's 70 to 85% traffic from mobile phones. So
Mm.
when you look at your website, you almost don't look at you shouldn't look at desktop as much as you look at website, but marketers tend to look way more at the desktop experience because most of us are working on laptops at home and you can open a URL and that kind of makes sense. But every time you look at that website, you should be looking at it on a mobile browsing device as well, or kind of a mobile site viewer. That's super important. The other thing is making sure that your site is fast. A lot of apartment communities have images, videos that they spend a lot of money on developing, and they'll start that out with with the kind of the hero image on the website. And what that can do is really delay timing and speed. So, there's that other meme of Will Ferrell saying, if you want to see what a person's really like, give them a cell phone and slow internet connection. And that's the way your users are. Like, users are incredibly fickle. They expect to be communicated with quickly. They want your website to move fast. And if you don't meet that experience, you're just going to have a lot of people that are like, this is weird. I'm going to go check out something else. And given the fact that the apartment industry is so competitive right now, people are shopping more and more properties than ever. So you really want to make sure that you're doing a great job capturing that attention immediately, looking at things like minifying JavaScript, compressing images to make sure that your site loads as quickly as possible. A great tool for this would be the Google PageSpeed Insights tool. It's not like the be all end all, but it's definitely a good way to kind of gauge how Google views your website from a performance and accessibility standpoint. So definitely an important factor as well.
Do you guys ever look at tools? I know in episodes where we've found Andreas on, sometimes he drops some of the tools he's using relative to those conversations. Google PageSpeed Insights is probably the most known for people who are like, I want to get a quick read on how fast the site's performing. And it's still actually a very, I think, useful tool. Some of the others out there, I may also still be powered by it. And I know you and I, in a previous work engagement, we loved using webpagetest.org, which is still out there. I think they got acquired by somebody, but still out there. GT metrics. Do you guys ever tell people?
They're all good. I would say probably Google PageSpeed Insights is the least good one. It's free though, and it does enough. Usually, we're not working directly with developers. So if you have something that you can share with the developer, Google PageSpeed Insights works really well. But to Sean's point, there are a ton of other tools that you can leverage that all kind of do some similar things. But Google, any of these tools are great. Definitely evaluate the accessibility and speed of your website. It's super important. Look at load times, look at time to first content paint. Like, all of those things are dollars that are not going to be walking in your front door if they're not addressed. I personally don't understand kind of the level of fickleness and impatience that a lot of users have. But we see it when you have a site that has a high bounce rate, long load time. You're just going to have way less conversions. You're going to be throwing way more money against the website. And obviously this has implications for organic traffic and for paid traffic. So you want a great user experience, regardless of what channel a customer is coming from.
It's also a nice transparency tool for at least one side of that relationship.
Yeah.
You know, your website provider may not like that you're looking at these things, but it really is kind of, from a business perspective, it's really the responsible thing to do, especially if you only use the free Google PageSpeed Insight tool. Um, with you guys, I know that you guys are really big advocates of people like go and use some of these tools, because it
Absolutely.
also produces a much better relationship and conversation of understanding between you and the clients. So so far so good, Mike. You're hitting home runs like always. Good,
Awesome.
really good stuff for people. Let's talk a little bit about key pages for apartment websites. Like they're beyond the homepage. You mentioned a few minutes ago that there's a big difference in terms of number of pages, say, between other verticals that you guys do a lot of work in: power sports, motorcycles, cars, automotive, and multifamily. So what are kind of the must-haves for really every property site if they want to rank and convert?
Absolutely. I think this is the most important part of the conversation. Every single apartment website that you see will have a homepage, an availabilities or floor plans pages, which is where they'll have all their floor plans listed. They will have an about us page. They'll have a neighborhood page, a contact page. Um, some of them will have FAQ pages, but most don't. What we see as being really bad, because again, as marketers, we are trying to drive as much traffic for floor plan level keywords as possible in specific geos. Usually there's about 3 to 5 geos that are targeted. If you're in a city like Plano, you're going to be targeting people in Plano, Frisco, proper, McKinney, so you're going to have kind of like a geo spread that you're looking for. And oftentimes we'll have conversations with building owners, and they're like, hey, why am I not showing up for this particular geo name that maybe is adjacent to where they're actually located or where they're actually located? And there's no content on the page that supports that. There's no URL. And if you don't have, for any priority keyword category that you want to rank for organically, you need to have a page for that. So if I'm putting forth the absolute must-haves for the full build out for any apartment website, regardless of how big it is, obviously you're going to have the homepage. You're going to keep the general availabilities page. You're going to have the neighborhood page. You're going to have the contact or about us page. But something that we absolutely recommend is breaking out your floor plan unit types into individual pages. Most apartment communities either have 1 through 3 bedroom apartments or studio through 2 bedroom apartments. So if you are if you are in a community that has, say, studio through 2 bedroom apartments, you're going to have your floor plans page or your available apartments with everything that's available on that page. You should also have individual pages with about 500 to 700 words of copy for studio, for 1 bedroom, for 2 bedroom. That will actually allow you to rank in the target geos that you want to rank for. And this is the most important thing, because literally nobody does this. There are very, very few websites that go beyond the general availabilities page. But if you want to think about how users are searching, think about the URL structure for one of these floor plans or availabilities pages. People aren't looking for floor plans. They're not looking for availabilities. When they do a keyword search in Google, they're looking for, I'm looking for a studio apartment in McKinney, Texas. So what you want is you want to have, the apartment name, better yet, apartment name plus apartments, geo, and then studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom. That is going to just set that page up for so much more success, because you're giving that one page a job. You're having it rank for the most competitive aspects of both paid media and SEO. And the cool thing about it is we're seeing a lot of really good traction on an SEO standpoint, where we're outranking Zillow and a lot of these ILS sites, because Google prefers ranking local sites over these internet listing kind of services websites. So that's super important. From an LLM standpoint, FAQ pages and neighborhood content pages are super important. We are definitely recommending that everyone go to their customers, think about to their residents, and ask what are kind of the, kind of collate the main questions. We have kind of a list that we have to kind of help jog memory and help move this project forward for our clients. But you absolutely want to have an FAQ page. That is one of the most important aspects to being discoverable in LLMs. And then the neighborhoods page, what's around you, what are you close to? What are the main highway arteries or train stations that you are close to? Shopping centers, areas of interest, all of those things are really important on the neighborhoods page. And then, of course, I would say, and this honestly, blogs are oftentimes on websites. They're not usually very visited pages because there's so many different people competing for how to winterize my pipes, or how to give someone mobile access to my unit. There's just so much content for that, and you're not going to win on that. So make sure that your content on your blog pages is super localized to what you're doing on your block and your community for your residents. And that information is going to be really helpful from an SEO standpoint. And then on the paid media side, again, a lot of your keyword spend is going to be against keywords like floor plans pages, like one bedroom apartment, Plano, Texas. From a keyword standpoint, you want that page to be very well optimized for the keyword that you're bidding on. Because if it is, then you're going to have a high quality score and a lower cost per click. And that is super important with CPCs going up sometimes 15 to 20% every year. You want to make sure that if the customer is looking for a one bedroom apartment in Plano, Texas, it says that in the ad and it's on the landing page. It's in the URL. It's just a very strong link that tells Google and the user, hey, you went to the right place for this keyword search. So that's super duper important. Other pages that I think are really important, there's typically multiple geos that any apartment community is trying to rank for. So again, using the Plano example, they're definitely going to try to rank for Frisco. They might try to rank for Richardson. They might try to rank for Las Colinas or Little Elm, all of these other areas which are within a 5-mile radius or whatever. So it's sometimes important to think about what those pages might be when you're building the website, and build out secondary and tertiary geo pages that are optimized for, hey, this apartment in community is close to Frisco, Texas. It's 5 minutes away and blah, 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 blah. 500 words of content on that page in support of the keyword. And really what you're trying to game is you're trying to rank for keywords like apartments near Frisco when your apartment community is in Plano. And that's a great way to extend your keyword reach beyond where you are just physically located. And most owners want to show up in more than just one geo, depending on how many there are. Obviously, Dallas is a great example because there's a new town every 5 minutes and a new town going up every 5 minutes, basically. So you want to make sure that that you have some room to go after some of those other pages. A great example here in Austin, there's an area called the Domain. It's not actually a town. It's not a neighborhood. It's just what everyone knows it by. So it's a neighborhood term, but it is a geo. So that would be, if for an apartment community that's near the Domain, that would be a great thing to rank for, even if you're not physically located there. So when you think about geos, think about what are the city terms that people use. For instance, Manhattan, what's the borough term? West Village, or the neighborhood term, like Chelsea or West Village or Queens or whatever. So you want to think about that when you are developing your content for geo pages.
Awesome. You covered so many things that I was going to ask you about. So I'm going to dig in on a couple of things a little bit. First place that I want to start that is, which of these would you say, in terms of page creation, deliver like the greatest, biggest ROI in terms
floor
of
plans all the way?
It's floor plans.
Have the general floor plans page with the 1, 2s, and 3s on there, but have an individual page for each floor plan category. You can talk about our studios are from 400 to 480 square feet. So you can give kind of general information about your studios. You can talk about what sides of the building they're on or on the community. Like, there's just so much that you can say about where these units are located and the different styles and floor plans that you have. Most apartment communities have about 2 to 3 different floor plans of a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. So those are things that you can highlight on those individual pages. But really what you're trying to rank that page for is 1-bedroom apartment in Plano, Texas. So you want to make sure that your keyword is focused on the product, which is the floor plan type itself, and then the geo where you're physically trying to get that traffic from. That is absolutely the most important project. It's something that is done by less than like 5% of multifamily websites that I see. And it's definitely a huge opportunity because it's an immediate visibility boost on Google when you create that content and those pages.
Would you say, for somebody who's, this is kind of unlocking some thoughts that they've maybe not had previously, when the website has maybe a catch-all with all of the floor plans, but instead of giving people the full deep dive in each of them, say it's the studio that it talks about, it's enough for them to be like, oh, I get it. But then there's a call to action that takes them to what you
Yeah.
were suggesting, which is the full page for the studio apartment in
Yeah.
greater detail.
Most in the main navs of most apartment websites, there's like the floor plans or the availabilities page. I recommend having a drop down. So it's like they can click on that and see everything, or they can go to the individual pages. And then on that individual floor plans page, have the links to those other pages. Internal linking is great for SEO and helping users get around the website. So you want to kind of give people multiple roads to get to their content. Even if most people end up going to the general availabilities page, if you have those individual floor plans pages, those are going to drive traffic for the website of the most important type of traffic, which is product plus location.
There's some really great tips that you've dropped here around navigation considerations for the website, right? There's not too many pages on these multifamily, apartment websites, but how the individual experiences that website and how they can navigate around, you're dropping some really good stuff. Just even the fact that, of course, it's a reward if you have great internal linking structure built. Mm-hmm. It's also super easy for somebody who, like you said, a drop down makes a lot of sense. But if they're in that environment and they're thinking, maybe I could stretch from a studio to a one, then what's that look like? To be able to get back and forth to those two things really quickly, that's like, again, there are so many details like this that people miss, they don't think about. But oftentimes it's because they didn't have anybody to kind of walk them through and explain, well, this is why it's important and this is why it's going to make a difference for you. And it's oftentimes, they say the devil's in the details. I hate that because I hate the devil. But, obviously success is oftentimes in the details.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So how could you prevent, the potential cannibalization when there's multiple layouts that might share similar features?
Well, I mean, when I think about cannibalization, I think about multiple pages or multiple pieces of content trying to rank for the same keyword. That happens a ton with huge websites where they'll basically have 10 different pages for a slight variation on one keyword. What we recommend is making sure that you really have a clear understanding of what is the keyword job of that page, what is the content job of that page, and streamlining it as much into primary target pages and then supporting underlying pages. So for instance, you have the general availabilities page, then that'll be supported by the studios page, and then that might be supported by those geo pages that you have. So, there's definitely a way to make it work, but you're kind of supporting the main page that has the job of ranking for that keyword, which in most cases would be either the floor plans page if you don't have individual floor plans pages, or those individual pages.
Love it. I'm going to move to I got a couple more categories that I want to share with you. You shared so much content in the last couple of answers that I'm fast forwarding. But if there's something that you want to make sure that you get in that I don't specifically bring up, feel free to do so. But I want to move to a couple questions around content strategy. Content plays a huge role. Of course, it's big. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
You spoke about blogs. You give a very great tip about, hey, if you're going to be doing blogs, especially multifamily apartment, make these all local, regional, as opposed to just a garbage dump for other stuff that everyone else is doing, places where you're not going to win.
Yeah.
That's a really, really good insight. But there's also, and you've mentioned a little bit around neighborhood or guides or lifestyle pieces. Where does content, what kind of role is it playing in helping the property stand out?
Yeah. So obviously it's really great to have blog, lifestyle, neighborhood community pages. Those are all things that are going to reinforce a potential apartment dweller to move to that community or not. It tends to be kind of a secondary item that people will look at. But what we see a lot of is just thin content across the board. You'll see homepages in the apartment space in incredibly complicated markets like Miami or Manhattan, and they have like 100 words on the page, but they've got these beautiful layout, these incredible floor to ceiling images and views of the Hudson River, like just incredible. And it's always the nicest communities that fail on this the most, because they really like what every person calls a clean design, which means a lot of images, a lot of white and black, not a lot of content. we something that we do in SEO that has definitely kind of directed this for us quite a bit is whenever we are trying to rank a page for a given keyword, we'll do research on who's ranking for that page right now locally and why. And you'll never see a page that has thin content ranking in position one. So for us, we were kind of looking at that and we're like, and it really makes sense, for instance, on a homepage to have probably 800 to 1200 words on that page broken out in different sections thematically, obviously not just one big content blog. You can put a lot of content at the bottom of the page and it's incredibly beneficial for ranking. On interior pages, like a single floor plans page, you probably want to have 400 to 700 words supporting, hey, we have this studio apartment, we're close to this area, you're a stone's throw from this gym, blah, blah, blah. But thin content is something that will not work. And if you don't have your website set up well for SEO with the pages that I mentioned, and you have thin content, you're just not going to rank for very much. You'll rank for certain variations of your property name, but you're not going to rank very far away from the community. And that's super important for most apartment communities. You want to rank for apartments near whatever geo within about a 3 to 5 mile radius. And if you don't have enough content, Google is going to choose the websites that have more content. You don't need to have a ton. Obviously, the other thing to worry about is like a lot of AI generated content sometimes can just kind of like, you'll just content bomb it up on sites. That's not good either. You want to be very thoughtful about the word depth that you choose and have something that's kind of reasonable. For main category pages, like a home page, you can have more content. On a neighborhood page, you should have a lot of content. On the lifestyle page, you should have a lot of content. Understanding that maybe the lifestyle and neighborhood page is not going to drive a lot of users to the website for that first visit, but that's going to be engaging content that's saying, okay, I'm looking at this community in Plano. Why should I live there? What are some of the elements? So that you want to make sure that it's informative and useful. And then on your key SEO pages, homepage, floor plans, and availabilities pages, that's where you're going to want to have a lot more copy, and make sure that it's not just the imagery. Obviously images are content as well. So you want to make sure that they're compressed. You want to make sure they look great, have great alt attributes and whatnot on them. So that will obviously benefit SEO. You want to make sure that you have some images. So on those individual floor plans pages, you want to make sure if it's the studio page that you have a little gallery of 15 to 20 pictures or something for people to scroll through, because people like to shop in different ways and some people like to dig deeper. So that's an important factor for content strategy. And then of course, the blog is a great place for kind of everything else. There was a community I lived at in Dallas and Addison for a while that was really famous for being close to like a lot of great pubs. And that was kind of a lifestyle component of what they have. We have a property here in Austin that has like a recording studio and a bunch of really great creative tools for solopreneurs and stuff like that. So that's something that they can lean into. You can absolutely develop a lot of traffic from your blog, but you're not going to do it by rehashing the content that everyone else just kind of spits out. The St. Patrick's Day, copy paste blog, the, Happy Hanukkah, like all of that stuff that you put out as kind of like a newsletter to your existing residents. Don't expect it to really move the needle from a traffic standpoint, but there are a lot of, not a lot, I would say a handful of properties that we work with that have really been thoughtful about their content and about the events that happen near them. And they're at, there was one instance where I was like, man, I tell my standard joke of like, if you want to see, if you want to really be disappointed, look at the traffic to the blog page. And these guys actually had like 1,000 hits a month on their blog for very relevant content to the area of town where they're located in. So you absolutely can make it work. I would say blogs are the lowest priority for most lease ups because they're trying to generate new traffic to the website. So once you've gotten through all of those different pages, about like 10 different pages of floor plans, primary, secondary, and tertiary geo pages, FAQ page, like all of that stuff, that's what matters the most from a traffic acquisition standpoint. Blogs is great for kind of other stuff.
Yeah, a lot of really good stuff there, Mike, too. That, your answer, if I try to like reduce the point of value that really came through for me is differentiation. Like if you are going to be heavy on the blog side, blogs are a really good example of where there's so much competition and it's just oversaturated with garbage. There are so many services that will we'll write all these blogs for you, and those have been going on for years, and most of them are really just, hey, look, we did some work and put it on your page, and yet it's the same work they might have done for 100 other people. It gets really to a point where it's like, is it going to differentiate or separate you? And so I like that you putting blogs in the priority where they're at. It sounds like if it's something neighborhood related or lifestyle related, that it's not just making sure that there's not enough copywriting done, because that is important. But even if you're going to do images, make sure that those images are named or tagged appropriately. That might mean, so it tells you what it is. And if you're going to use images and you're, in the Austin area, and maybe you have an apartment that's really close or pretty close walking distance to where they have the big, festival every year. I don't know if that's already happened or coming up. The big old
ACL.
Yep.
This weekend.
If you had something like that, you could probably have pictures of the park or references, like things like that. All of what you're sharing, I think, gives people a visual of that starts to make more sense to me. And again, those are differentiating details that will make a difference from somebody else who's just saying, we're going to give you this standard build out, which doesn't incorporate or think about any of those details.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about something that I don't think enough people would ask the question or think to ask the question, but I know you could speak to it. And that is, if you're going to scale content across, let's just say you've got multiple properties and you don't want it, if you have anything that's might be duplicate or whatever, you don't want to dilute SEO value when you're trying to accomplish something like that.
That's why it's so important when you look at the page that you want to create, like a floor plans page, do the research and see who is ranking for that in your area, and make sure that your content isn't exactly like that other page. Make sure it's not exactly like the other pages. There's only so many different ways to write a page for a studio floor plan. So you really have to make it unique to the property. You've got to make sure that it's not just filling words on the page. So that's why that research component is really, really important. But yeah, when we do a content project, the first order of business is what are the keyword clusters we're trying to rank for here? Who's ranking for these keyword clusters right now? Okay. What's the content depth? What's the backlink profile? How are they talking about their floor plans or units? How can we differentiate ourselves? And then start the project. If you just start out and being like, hey, I'm going to go to AI and generate a copy for, X words of copy for, it's not going to be unique. It's going to be like literally, they probably will even look at the websites of your competitors that you're trying to differentiate yourself from and give you something exactly like that. So it's just really important that you have a clear understanding of that. Yeah.
I like that. Last couple of questions are around conversion friendliness. It's probably where a lot of people always consume podcasts like this. They're kind of like, okay, this is all really good stuff. But then it's like, well, what are some of these? And so this feels like maybe a question that somebody who's a property owner or apartment manager would say, hey, Mike, so what are like some design and copy tweaks that we could make that would result in the biggest impact on lead form submissions or tour requests?
Right. So every apartment community, 85% of their leads are going to be from the phone. So phone is the most important. The typical things that you'll see is a phone number. You'll have a clickable icon or a very small number, kind of top right or center of the website. And oftentimes that the ribbon or the header doesn't float with you. So you kind of have to scroll back up to the page. So basically, from a conversion optimization standpoint, you want to make your phone numbers fairly large, because a lot of people are older or have bad eyesight like me and prefer larger numbers. You want to make sure they're clickable and it's not just in text. And you also want to make sure that when people are shopping your units, a floor plans unit or availabilities unit, that you always make it very easy for them to take the action that they're the most likely to take, which is a phone call or a form submit. A schedule of a tour is a very common one as well. One issue that we see all the time with these very beautiful, expensive websites is almost like the number is hidden. They don't want to show it. And it's just like, okay, well, we understand that they're probably going to look in the footer, for the phone number or some, contact us page. You want to make sure that on every single page of your website, People can request a tour, they can chat with you, they can send you a text, they can make a phone call. If you don't have those elements, your conversion rate on those individual pages will be non-existent or really bad. So you just want to make sure that people can make that transaction initiative from any place in the website. The other aspect on like forms is that you want to ideally not iframed into the site or not on a different website. It's very common that applications go to offsite portals, and those become very, very difficult to track. So if you have a way of keeping everyone inside your same website, you're going to have better visibility. You're going to have the ability to track those conversions much better. Oftentimes, marketers can only track when someone clicks apply now, and then they go to this other page, and then that application portal will tell them, hey, you got X amount of leads or whatever. But you want to make sure that you can track it end to end within the same website. Sending people to another website that doesn't look like yours is also kind of spammy looking. It's kind of an outdated practice, and it's not something that ever happens in e-commerce. It's not something that happens in a lot of these different industries like auto, power sports, where there's a huge emphasis on cart optimization. Apartment community does not look at cart that way. So it's definitely something that we're really thinking about. It's something that if we look at a website, it's beautiful, tiny phone number. Hey, let's make that number float. If someone's scrolling, I want the homepage nav with the number, with the CTAs on, just going with you wherever you go. You don't need to like put too many buttons. It makes me think of some automotive websites where it gives you check availability, quick quote, get your estimate. Well, and it's literally all the same thing. It's literally all the same
Trade
thing.
in now.
Trade in now. Sell us your car. We'll buy your car. And it's literally the same form with 10 different links. Like, who cares? Just contact us now. Keep it simple, streamlined, and available. And that is going to be a conversion friendly website.
And this is kind of the last thing I wanted to ask you about. And I think it's relative. It's like, as it would, or it should relate to how you would integrate something like an availability feed or chat, or these things that you don't want to look separate. They need to be integrated within that environment, so people feel like they're not going to two different places.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. This is wow.
Yeah,
awesome stuff. Before you know it, we're through a super like fire episode. And for all of you out there that are consuming the content, well, we appreciate it. If you're on YouTube, like it, share it, all that good stuff. You know what to do. If you don't already follow Mike and Premier Online Marketing on LinkedIn, you should go do that. I recommend to everybody, start with looking up Premier Online Marketing. You'll find them easily on LinkedIn, and then go filter by all of their employees and the people. And when you get to that point, you'll be able to find out how easy it is to follow Mike and follow Claire and follow Andreas, and make sure you get in there, because their team is just full of great insights, and that's a great place to connect and truly network with people that you can easily like, but you certainly start to trust them because they share information like Mike just did during this episode of the podcast. Mike, thanks for joining and sharing so much today. Any final thoughts? Last word?
Yeah, last idea is, whenever you're going to name your building something, Google it to see how many other buildings have the same name. I think I kind of said that a little bit earlier. That's a really important one. But I think that's everything that I have on apartment websites. Thank you so much, Sean. This is a great episode.
Another fantastic episode of the podcast. So thanks for tuning in. And until next time, well, be nice to each other. We need a lot more of that in the world. So we'll see you next time on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sean.